Hey, everybody, this is Bob Cargill from Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, and I am here in my home office, Sudbury, Massachusetts, and I am here today with Elizabeth Schaul. And Elizabeth is a marketing strategist and women's empowerment leader. And Elizabeth, I met, we think, we both can't remember exactly when, but about a year ago at an AMA Boston marketing mingle. Oh, I miss those in-person events. We, as you know, I'm president. Those of you who know me, I'm president of AMA Boston, and love our in-person marketing mingle events once a month. We've had for a couple of years now. We've pivoted, and I love how we've pivoted. We're doing the best we can, and I think it's the next best thing, doing them online. But back to how I met Elizabeth. I met her in person at one of our past marketing mingles, and I'm going to let Elizabeth tell you all about her background. Welcome, Elizabeth. Thanks for joining me today. Tell my viewers and listeners all about yourself.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. Thank you to everyone listening. Great to be here. So as you said, I am a marketing strategist. I'm also a women's empowerment leader. I'm based in Boston, and I have a background in financial services, e-com, life science, consulting. I've done marketing big and small, more in depth with social media and email, but also have really deep, broad foundational expertise in marketing as well.
Excellent, Elizabeth. And you, I think we stayed in touch through LinkedIn. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. LinkedIn and email, I would say.
Yeah.
Yep.
But what I'm trying to get at is, I always make clear to listeners, viewers, how I know who I'm interviewing, because it's interesting how we stay in touch, and how I like to emphasize using social media, especially LinkedIn. It's such a good tool to connect. And the whole process was, we meet in person, we network, maybe exchange business cards the old fashioned way, get to know each other, then you connect on LinkedIn, then you stay in touch, and look at us now. We're during the pandemic having a Zoom call. I just love the whole process. Thank you for staying in touch with me.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I was really excited for our conversation, and I'm glad we can connect today.
Awesome. And I do want to say before I forget, this is during the pandemic. We're recording this on May 21, 2020, a Thursday, a beautiful day outside from the looks of things. I haven't been outside yet. Got to get outside after this call, perhaps, to enjoy a little fresh air. But it's during the pandemic, during the coronavirus crisis. And I just want anybody listening, watching to know, we're thinking of you, wishing you well. Everyone's hunkering down, quarantining, and doing what we can to keep ourselves, our loved ones safe and sound, happy and healthy, and also keep the business motors running. So on that note, Elizabeth, how personally and professionally, how are you doing during this pandemic? What have you been doing? How are you doing?
Great question. So I'm doing well. It's definitely been a roller coaster, personally and professionally, which I think a lot of people can feel and can relate to. At the start of this, so March 13th, like many people, I was sent to start working from home. I worked for a large global e-commerce company. I was managing email for one of their brands, and the thought was we'd go home for a couple weeks. I was contracting, so I was in a contract to perm role. And a couple weeks later, I got a call from my manager and said, I am so sorry. We've shut down all our stores. We've shut down all our websites as well, which is a little unusual for other e-com brands, especially a brand of that size. And because of that, we actually need to end relationships with all our contractors. So totally caught off guard. Prior to that, I had been actually in process of, we were going through an internal reorg on the digital team. And so I was going to be taking on a bit more responsibility. I was very excited about it. Didn't expect it, but I mean, who could have expected this? This is obviously completely unprecedented. And then a few interesting things happened. So I have a very good friend whose husband is the COO at a company that does virtual events and has a webinar product. So they have a retail solution, and they also have a white label solution. And they said, we are we have so much volume, we can't keep up. We really need help. So I've actually been on the business development team there, kind of in an ad hoc basis, but supporting them, speaking with prospects, speaking with potential clients, providing him some marketing advisory services. At this point, they're definitely more focused on kind of the sales side, but the marketing side will also need support as well as they expand. So that's, that was just a really lucky opportunity. And I've been kind of digging more into that.
So you've pivoted and not, coincidentally or not, you've pivoted and you're doing something that aligns perfectly well with the times, and that is the virtual events and business development. Are you involved on camera for these events? Are you mostly using email? How are you conducting business, if you will?
Great question. So it's been, it's a lot of email, just talking with people, talking with companies all over the world about their event needs. I mean, some of these companies are global brands. Some of them are companies that are event management companies where that's really the heart of their business. And suddenly now they're not able to do those in-person events. So they really need to pivot quickly to a virtual solution. It usually starts out by email. And then once I kind of know what they really need or what they look for, then we have a virtual conversation. So using, the company is called Big Marker. We use the virtual space. I show them around the platform. I show them the capabilities of what it can do. And then, so it's been, for me, it's a huge change. I've been doing marketing for 9 years. I don't necessarily see myself in business development permanently, but just with the times, what they are, and kind of this opportunity presented itself, I figured I'd be, crazy not to take it. So that's what I'm doing now. I will say I am definitely, I am a marketer at heart. My mind always goes in, especially in meetings with prospects or internal meetings, my meeting really goes to thinking like a marketer, and kind of what the experience is for our prospect or our client. But it's been a great learning experience and really understanding more in depth the relationship between marketing and sales. So I don't know that I'll be in sales or business development forever after this, but I think having this background and this different perspective is helping me a lot.
I think you've pivoted extremely well, and what you just said, you have such a healthy attitude about it all. Either way, say it sticks and this is what you do for a long time, that's obviously a win. If it doesn't, you still are learning new skills, making the most of these difficult days, and it's sales. And I just get done teaching for Suffolk University the spring semester, a couple sections of students. I taught marketing, and we talk about sales, and I tell them how intertwined sales and marketing is. I mean, marketing is very closely related to sales, and usually, I think our goal, usually always, is to sell when we're marketing. So I would imagine it's a great experience. And if you don't mind me asking, what you said about the tool, the company, so you're using that tool when you talk to potential customers, and that's really interesting because you're, by communicating with them using the platform, you're in a way demonstrating it and maybe selling it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And it's partially it's because the tool works really well. The sound quality is excellent. It's I think it's a robust tool. I would use it anyways, just in conversations with my friends. I actually I taught myself how to use the tool for my virtual birthday party in April. So that was one piece of it. And then you're absolutely right, because we are building custom events. I can't bring a prospect into another client's event and say, hey, go look at what they're doing. So what I try to do when I'm actually on these calls with prospects is I will make them an admin and kind of let them see what the back end of the experience looks like. And so they can see all the different features, and they can enable, the mics or disable or polls or Q&As or handouts or whatever it is. And just so they can feel a little more comfortable. And I basically explained to them at the bare bones, this is the same technology. It's that we're building for your virtual event or your white label webinar platform. We're actually building a beautiful user interface that is what you will then be able to use. But from your end, it's going to look exactly almost as it does now with even the same interface. So I like them to see that. I think it brings some reassurance.
Yeah. Again, from a marketing perspective, and this show is all about marketing, you're explaining, and we didn't plan it this way, but you're explaining a great strategy for marketers to leverage, and that is demonstrating, marketing a product by using it, by going through a how to use our product. You demonstrate it. It's hands-on. You let your prospects, your hopefully customers down the road, kick the tires, if you will, and if you're confident in that product or service, it's worth giving them this trial, if you will, and maybe there's a free trial offer. I don't know.
There is.
Yeah. So then they try it for a little bit, and bing bang boom, you got a deal, you got a sale. So I think that is if I was to encapsulate, and I often do this, I try to encapsulate what we're talking about. Great marketing tip. You reach out, you have someone like Elizabeth demonstrate the product, the customer likes the product, the customer ends up trying the product for a little while, then loves the product, and then buys the product. Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what and you're right. We actually do have a free 7-day trial, which does allow people to get a really clear sense of the platform. And also they can host mini events within that time. So they're not branded, but they are, they could have a webinar, and have 10 of their friends or whatever they wanted in that time. So, yeah.
Well, again, this was not planned, but I probably am a prospect, Elizabeth. So maybe
we can talk after this. I can show you about it.
So wrapping up, if you will, this segment, I wanted to make sure, because you mentioned it, what's the name of the product and how can people learn more if they wanted to?
Yeah, so the company is called Bigmarker. So you can just email me, elizabeth.schaul, that's SCHAUL, @bigmarker.com.
There you go. Not planned at all. Folks, Elizabeth and I, again, we think, right? Neither of us remember. We think it was only once. We remember that time.
Yeah, I think it's been just one time we met in person.
And it was like a year ago. And I love to introduce new people to my audience. And I love actually learning more about my guests extemporaneously for the first time, if you know what I mean. So it's fresh, it's real, it's authentic. And I'm learning as we go, Elizabeth, all about you and your background and what you do. So I'm going to ask another question. I have a few in mind, and who knows where we'll go from there. But during this pandemic, I have my opinions. I right away did a video in Copley Square in Boston, right when the coronavirus crisis first began, if you will, near the beginning of the coronavirus crisis. I did a video and I said, brands and businesses, you have to adjust, if not pause, your marketing messages. And at the time, it was very early on, none of them were. And so the ads were really just out of place, tone deaf, and no real fault of companies. They couldn't react that quickly. And I've been doing videos, throughout the last couple months, specifically addressing how brands and advertisers and marketers and businesses are dealing with the coronavirus. And now they've all pivoted and changed their messaging. And ironically, a lot of them sound the same because it's really hard to stand out and do it well. But I applaud them for at least adjusting their messages. And it's not same old. It's not business as usual. It's business as unusual. All that said, I want to ask you, I have my feelings, but this is me interviewing you, Elizabeth. I want to hear from you. What brands and businesses do you think have done a good or bad job during this pandemic? Have you seen any ads that stand out to you?
Yes. So that's a great question. There have been a few that have really stuck out to me. So Hyundai, which is very random, they have an ad that it appears to be a collection of videos that people have taken of wild animals walking on kind of roaming streets that are empty. So you have a peacock running down the road, you have a kangaroo, you have dolphins, you have monkeys. And it's to promote what I believe must be an electric vehicle that they have. It's their eco vehicle. And the message behind it is let's create more of this when we come out of this. Let's create more of this space. And I really connected with that. It was clear that it wasn't done on a fancy camera. It was probably a compilation of cell phone videos, maybe some nicer cameras, but probably not. I didn't expect it to be a commercial or an ad for a car, but it was. And they didn't even show the car. I thought about it later and I thought, I just saw a peacock walking down the street. That's really cool. So for me, I think that the companies that have done things that feel really heartfelt and really sincere and authentic, there's Facebook has a quarantine mom ad. So it's a woman who's speaking. She's 100 years old. She talks about how she was born, I'm guessing during, maybe it was one of the times of the flu in the teens, the 19 teens. And I really loved that message as well. I liked that it was kind of targeted towards moms, maybe especially pregnant women or women who are giving birth at this time and are scared. I thought that was, that really I resonated with. There's a couple others as well. The Ohio, so I'm from Cleveland, I'll just say, so I'm a little biased, but the Ohio Department of Health, or maybe the Public Health Board, they did an ad that was, it was about social distancing, and it was with ping pong balls and mouse traps. And they initially had a bunch of mouse traps with ping pong balls, and they had them close together, and they showed how if you set off one, they all went off. But then they separated them and they dropped a ping pong ball and none of them went off.
That's brilliant.
That was very effective. It was very interesting. Those are some of the ones that have really stood out to me.
That is great. So I'm going to focus on the Hyundai ad you mentioned. Number one, I think I'm not familiar with it, but the way you described it, I totally get it. And I think it's a perfect example, number one, how to pivot, because you said something like it's not really marketing, but it is. It's branding, and it's relating to the time, so it's relevant in the fact that it is not necessarily professional in terms of the photography, the visual content you mentioned. It looks like it's on a smartphone. The clips that have been taken, maybe it's user generated content, meaning people they took people's clips and stitched them together, made this ad. It's authentic, it's genuine, it's extemporaneous, it's timely, it's relevant. That's how you advertise during the pandemic. And that's how I believe, I was saying this before the pandemic, and I'm definitely going to reinforce this message going forward. That's how you should always be advertising. Why be aggressive and annoying, if you will, and salesy? Just be real. And people, I think, relate more to those messages and tell stories of like you're telling with me, others about those messages, because you like those messages. They stick in your mind, and that's how you do it. So great example on the Hyundai spot.
Thank you. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's really what resonates. There was another one too, as you were talking, I was thinking of L'Oreal did an ad where it's a hair color ad, and their spokesperson, who's Eva Longoria, has a bottle of their hair color. She has visible gray roots, and she colored her hair clearly using her cell phone in her home. And it was kind of a perfect example of, this is something that all of us are dealing with in some way, even if we don't have someone who's sick. Or I personally do have had people close to me who've been hospitalized, but with COVID. But even if we don't, we can all relate to kind of feeling, we are in our homes, we aren't able to do our normal routine. We do want to feel that connection. We do want to feel that authenticity. And I would say I could certainly relate to the L'Oreal ad, and the Hyundai ad really spoke to me deeply. I really loved that.
Those people you refer to, I hope they're okay, Elizabeth?
They are okay. Thank you. Yeah, they are okay. They're out of the hospital.
Okay.
Neither of them had to be on a ventilator, which is a blessing. So they are home. They're recovering. It's my boyfriend's brother and then his father. So it's,
Wow.
we're luckily all safe and healthy now, but it's, scary.
It's very scary. And my wife and I are taking this very seriously, and we wearing masks when we are outside and can't social distance, and it's pretty much all the time we have them with us. I'm a runner. I'm out there every day running, and I wear a gaiter, I think you call it, but so you can pull it up or down pretty quickly. And sometimes I wear the actual mask, but always a face covering, either on me, ready to go, or on me. But we've been disappointed, frankly. Not that I plan to go there in terms of this topic, but we've been disappointed in not everybody taking it so seriously. And we say to each other, it's when people are affected by it personally, they take it seriously. And if you go into the city, which we have done a few times, and drive around, everyone's wearing a mask, because in Boston, everyone's been affected. But if you're out here in the burbs, and I'll tell you, my home's in Sudbury, my home office is here in Sudbury, people aren't as worried about it because it's not as prevalent. We all need to take this seriously. I'm going to talk briefly about an ad or campaign I've seen. I've been watching how Governor Cuomo from New York has been handling this, and remarkable leadership, and ridiculously awesome leadership, if you ask me, just my opinion, and how he's been trying to get his residents, New York State residents, to wear masks. And they now have this contest. They asked people to do a video about why people should wear masks, and the 5 finalists were posted just the other night. And I don't think they've picked a winner yet, but I applaud Governor Cuomo in New York State for doing this campaign to engage the audience, engage those who follow him, those who live in the state, in a positive way. Create a video why everybody should wear a mask, and we're going to award somebody, the winner, with something. I don't know what the prize is, but it gets people engaged. It gets people to think, and I think people, when they see how it is hitting others close to home, they might be more inclined to wear a mask. Just finish up the one I like best of the 5 ads. 5 finalists. One was "Don't Be That Guy," and they show a big, strong, strapping guy with a T-shirt that says "That Guy" in letters, and he's at the train station, and he's the only one not wearing a mask, and everybody's walking around looking at him and standing really far away from him. So I thought it was very effective. Don't be that guy who's not wearing a mask. So just wanted to throw that out there as an example of a campaign I like, but it also obviously ties into some of my personal points of view about this coronavirus. More people need to take it seriously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I haven't seen the campaign that you're talking about, or the contest that Cuomo created, but I'll definitely check it out after this. I would love to see those.
Yeah. So let me shift gears a tad. In general, are there any people, any companies, any blogs, you name it, resources that inspire you, that motivate you, that are your go-tos that you would share with anyone listening, watching?
Yeah. So I would say, from a marketing standpoint, I like Michael Brenner's content. I think that I follow him on LinkedIn. I've used some of the tools that he's created. I think he's a content marketer. He has, decades of experience. I like what he creates. I think even though he's been doing this for a long time, he makes it really tangible and understandable for someone who doesn't have his experience and, kind of his depth and breadth of experience. So I have found his tools to be really helpful. I've listened to his talks before. I think they're great. I would say I have been following more kind of small businesses and, businesses and companies that I would already follow. So I tend to follow a lot of, I would say, probably women who own small businesses. And that's kind of been people that I've been watching and kind of seeing what they're doing, what they're creating, what they're doing during this time. And that's been what I've been inspired by. So Sadie Kurzban is one. She owns a company called 305 Fitness, which is kind of like a dance workout. She has studios all over the country. And then
what is her name?
Her name is Sadie Kurzban. So last name Kurzban. So she's not a marketer. She's really kind of a fitness leader, if you will. And I would also call her a women's leader. But more than that, I think she's very good at bringing people together, and she's very authentic. I've seen her speak in person. I would consider us, certainly acquaintances, if not friends. We've met on multiple occasions. We stay in touch on social media. I am a client, so I'm a member of her fitness studios. But I think she's a real advocate for the people who work for her. She's a real advocate for her community. She is a voice, I think, which I really appreciate. And I think of as marketers, that's something that we have. Like we're able to create and promote different voices. And she does that naturally. I don't think she would ever consider herself a marketer. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But she has that ability, which I really admire.
Do you know her website, her URL, or how can people look her up?
I follow her on Instagram. If you search 305 Fitness, and so you can either look at the 305 Fitness website, which is just 305fitness.com. It's very colorful, it's bright, it's fun, it's very much a come as you are. I think she's done things a little differently in fitness, because typically I think the view of what we've seen as kind of the fitness leader tends to be a very thin, fair-skinned person. And she herself is a thin, fair-skinned person, but that's not necessarily her audience. Her audience really is very broad. She has wonderful instructors. She has a wonderful, the people in her classes are people of all sizes and all backgrounds. It's not just a bunch of the same kind of physical type of person that you would see. I think she has just really, and she's continuing to create a space for this. I could see her just in the world being a leader beyond fitness, but really being a voice for communities.
You need to, when we are finished with this conversation and I put it out there on social media, you need to tell her you talked all about her.
I will.
This podcast. Yes. And seriously, I want you to give her a plug. I want viewers and listeners to look her up. What was on Instagram?
It's 305. So she's from Miami. She's based in New York, but she's from Miami. So it's kind of an homage to the Miami area code. So it's 305fitness.com.
305fitness.com. Look her up. And that's high praise from Elizabeth Schaul. Yes, Elizabeth. So a few more questions, and then we can maybe wind things down. You mentioned Michael Brenner, and I think it's Marketing Insiders, I believe is the name of his
I think so too.
blog. And I know we at AMA Boston, not myself personally, but we generally speaking, had interviewed him for the Talking Marketing podcast, AMA Boston's podcast. And yeah, he's an amazing guy. I read and share his content an awful lot. I'm going to throw you a couple more specific about you questions. What are your goals? And to me, you are a thought leader. You are confident. You are articulate. You got a strong background. But unlike me, you're early in your career. I'm towards the last, quarter of my career, last third of my career. You're probably in the first third of your career. Just guessing, approximately. What about the rest of your career? What is the trajectory for Elizabeth Schaul?
That's a great question. So I would say my long-term goal is I want to be in a leadership role at an organization that supports women. So when I was a little younger, even in high school, I thought that would be like leading Planned Parenthood. That's what I pictured for myself.
You have lofty ambitions, and I absolutely sense that you are going to be at the top of the corporate ladder wherever you want to be.
Thank you. So I would say that's absolutely still a goal. I would say I have expanded the realm of organizations or possibilities of what I see myself leading. To be frank, I could also see myself leading an organization or a cause that maybe doesn't quite exist yet. It's really hard to know what the world will look like after these times. So I'm very cognizant of that. The other piece of this is that I love skincare. When I was 12 years old, I also love makeup. When I was 12, I actually won a contest for Urban Decay Cosmetics where I created several cosmetic colors for them, several lipstick colors. This was a complete fluke. I mixed up some nail polish in my bedroom and wrote some names that I made up and mailed them in, and I won. I really love skincare as well. I do make some of my own skincare. Before all this, I was looking at night school programs for aesthetics, not to become an esthetician, but just because I love it. I could absolutely see myself in a skincare company, leading a skincare company, having my own line. I don't know what that will look like, but it's absolutely a passion of mine that I really love. And I would say no matter what I'm doing, I really want to be in a space where I'm empowering other people, where I am enabling others, where I'm investing in others, and then I'm an example. So that's something that's very important to me, is that I want to be a model and an example for others, and kind of pave the way for their own leadership. So maybe I'm not necessarily going to do the thing that they will create, but with me being me and me being the leader that I am, I will empower them to be able to step into creating what they are supposed to do here, what their purpose is.
Wow. I said you're a thought leader. That was the words of a leader, and words to the wise from Elizabeth Schaul. I mean, we need, I think, and not just in business, but in this country and in this world, more positive leaders who lead by example. And to me, that's your aspiration, Elizabeth, and you're already doing it now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not even a question. And I hope this 40 or 45 minutes, I don't know how long we've talked, I'm not timing it, to be honest with you. I hope it's a platform, at least one of, you deserve many platforms to get the word out about, what what you believe in, and where you're heading. Because if I were others, because you already got me as a fan, if I were others, I would get right behind you and follow your lead and support you and your goals. I'm very,
Thank
very
you.
impressed. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that.
You got it. Not even a question. Is there anything else you want to say before we wind down? I think I've personally exhausted what I might want to say, but feel free. Open-ended question.
Yeah. What I would say is that something that I've learned about myself in all of this is we all have that voice that tells us that we can't, or that the idea that we have is stupid, or that, even as marketers, we're constantly testing. We have no idea what's going to work with people. I mean, we test and we test again, and then we keep doing more of what works. And then sometimes it continues working, and sometimes it doesn't. But I would say as marketers, and just even in our lives, even when you have the voice that tells that's a silly idea, or don't do that, or don't speak up, or whatever it is, ignore it. Hear the voice and then say, thank you, I hear you, and I'm going to do it anyway, because even though I may feel scared, or I may feel it's silly, something tells me that I should. I think that people just kind of ignoring that inner voice, which is really the voice of maybe a teacher when we were 7. It's not an adult voice. If we actually just ignore that and do the thing that we know that really needs to be done, I think we'll be amazed at our own abilities, and kind of amazed at what we can contribute to in the world.
I couldn't agree more with you. And it's taken me many years to learn what you just said. Meaning I feel the same way. I think we, people in general, certainly in the workplace, I think it's even magnified, and then some. We tend to question ourselves because we may have been criticized in the past, or because we have a boss or a teacher. And these people are the gatekeepers, and they're often saying no, or asking us why we would want to do something so crazy. But often it's those things that at first seem crazy that are going to be the exponential gains and huge wins. I think if you don't, I'm telling you now for the first time, but I'm writing this book. I think I mentioned it earlier on in our conversation. And my working title is 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons. And going back over all the jobs I've had, and it's more than 20 if I count all the jobs I had in college and part-time jobs. And I feel this strongly, that I have done some of the very best work, not even a question, when I didn't have someone looking over my shoulder, when I had autonomy, when I had freedom, when I was able to do, again, what I do best without someone telling me, no, do it this way, or change this, change that. And that takes, number one, for me, it was guts, and maybe foolishness at some points in time to just go out there and do it on my own. But if I didn't do it on my own, meaning I had my own business for 7 years in the 90s, and now I've been on my own for the last 3 years, I would never know that feeling, that satisfaction, that fulfillment of doing it myself and realizing, hey, I can do this on my own. I don't need someone telling me how to do it. Now, if only bosses and managers and anybody overseeing others, anyone in a leadership position would realize that their people, the people who are looking up to them for the guidance, really sometimes just want them to step out of the way. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. Well, get out of the way, leaders, and you may find your people do some of their very, very best work. And that's on your behalf. It's a win-win. So what you just said, I guess I'm just echoing it and saying it in a different way. We're on the same page, Elizabeth.
Yeah, no, and I hear that, and I think you're absolutely right. It is leaders, as much as they're teachers, they're also really there to provide help where it's needed, and then to kind of support when it's needed as well. I think you're absolutely right.
We are on the same page, and that's why we stayed in touch for almost a year, having only met that once at the AMA Boston Marketing Mingle. Folks, this has been Elizabeth Schaul, my guest. A hand for Elizabeth. Yes.
Thank you.
You've been awesome. Let me ask you how people can reach you, and what you can do for them or what they can do for you. Your open-ended question. What information do you want to leave people with?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can find me on LinkedIn. So Elizabeth Schaul. So it's Schaul, and I think you'll see it in the description as well. You can also reach out to me, just my first name, last name @gmail.com. So that's elizabethschaul@gmail.com. And you can reach out to me for marketing. So as I said, I have a deep background in social media and email. Also I have worked in a startup environments as well. So definitely Fortune 100 all the way down to startup. And even if it's not about marketing, if you just want to reach out and have a conversation, I always love to connect.
Folks, connect with Elizabeth Schaul. She is ridiculously awesome, and you've been a ridiculously awesome guest today, Elizabeth. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I've learned so much about you, and I just think the world of you. I mean, you are already a leader, but I can see the sky's the limit for you. There's no limit.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me and for providing me the opportunity to be with you today. And I've really enjoyed our conversation.
My pleasure, Elizabeth. So folks, you've been listening to myself, Bob Cargill, and my guest today, Elizabeth Schaul. This is Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, and this will be available on video. I've recorded it via Zoom, and also on my podcast, the audio version. I put it up on Podbean, and you can find it on Spotify and wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And I hope my podcast is one of your favorites. I now have over 100 episodes. I think this might be episode 102, Elizabeth. Oh. So yeah, but who's counting? But thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you to my viewers and listeners, and I will talk to you again soon.